and welcome to my channel. My name is Untitled, a Christian blogger sharing on the glimpse of God's glory. I share personal testimonies to encourage others to see the love, the power, and the glory of God in their everyday lives. Kindly subscribe to the channel, like this video, and leave a comment. For the past 2 weeks, I've been meaning on to share a testimony about a time in my life when God seemed to be silent. And I was still figuring out which part of my story am I going to share. And I recently attended a Bible teaching session, discussion session at church. And there's quite a whole lot of things that we discussed during that session. But there's two things that stood out that helped me to narrow down which part of my story I want to share for this video. During the discussion, there was a time when the pastor was addressing the teenagers and encouraging them that as young people, especially those who are doing their final year in high school, they should not feel pressured to immediately enroll into varsity. Should the opportunity arise, they should take the opportunity, but they should not feel the pressure of wanting to immediately enroll in varsity and overlooking the option of taking a gap year. As someone that enrolled in varsity at a young age, I quite understand the dynamics around that sentiment of encouraging a young person not to be pressured to go to varsity simply because their peers whom they went to school with have enrolled in varsity. And the second point that he mentioned that helped me to narrow down which part of my story I want to share for this video is the fact that most people, if not everyone, at some point in their lives, they felt the pressure of life. There was a time when they felt as though there was no point of living. There was a time when, even if they did not reach a point of wanting to commit suicide, of eventually committing suicide, but there was a time in their lives where they questioned their purpose of living, where they questioned whether life is worth living. So finally, I know which part of my story I want to share for this video and for this testimony. Around the ages of 6, 7, or 8, I cannot quite remember, I had a friend who was my classmate and my neighbor at home. We used to eat together during lunch break, and I think she sort of realized that we could be bullied because of the kind of lunchbox that I would bring to school. And this is not something that we discussed, but she sort of suggested that during the lunch hour we should go and hide. There was an old classroom within the schoolyard, so we would go and hide and eat my lunchbox first behind that old classroom, and then come back to the school grounds and join the rest of the kids and eat her lunchbox. And there were already incidents of me being bullied because of our home, me being bullied because of my school uniform, which was mostly oversized or torn. Or sort of figured out that this kind of lunchbox that this girl is bringing to school could get us both in trouble because she was my friend and we were kids and everyone else around us was a kid. They didn't know better. So, and those are some of the incidents that took place in my life that made me promise myself that I don't want my children to go through similar incidents. I don't want my children to experience such. I don't want my children to experience limitations in life that are related to them coming from a poor family. And obviously this video is not to disgrace my family, it's not to dishonor my parents or my grandparents who have raised me at some point, but to encourage someone that is going through a season in their lives where God seems to be silent. It's not a nice position to be in. It's not a nice situation to be in. I promise you that. So fast forward now, I'm in high school, I'm reading a lot of books, I'm coming across a lot of biographies, stories of people, well-known people who have made it in life. And what stands out about these stories, or what is common about these stories, is that these people have faced a lot of challenges that when you look at yourself and you think, I could have never survived that. And another thing that is common about these stories is that these people sort of reach a breakthrough in their life, sort of reach a point where their gifts have been building up to a moment of them coming to a breakthrough where now all the challenges that they've been through in life sort of make sense. So they help me to ask myself, what are my gifts? What is it that I could use as a weapon to fight poverty? What is it that I could use, that I could build on, so that I also, like these people that I'm reading about, to reach a point of a breakthrough? I have always been in the top 10 in class, in the top 5, in the top 3. I had always been one of the first ones to understand concepts in class, and I thought, okay, this could be my weapon, this could be something that I use to reach my breakthrough and take my family out of poverty. And I then enrolled in varsity, and I had limited information. I had no form of mentorship, I had limited knowledge, and I sort of figured things out on the go. I sort of figured things out on my own. But I enjoyed that process. I was excited, about the prospects of being enrolled in one of the prestigious universities in the country. As much as I had limited information and I sort of figured things out on my own on the go, I was excited overall, and overall I was happy about the way my life had turned out at that point in time. After I'd completed my studies, here comes the devastating part, the traumatizing part, and the disappointing part. The part where I was not getting any job, I was not getting any employment, I was not getting any form of making money, and it went down to a point where I was no longer looking for my job that I desired or for my dream job, but I was not looking for any other form of making an income so that I can take my family out of poverty and I can start assisting at home. That is a time in my life where I felt as though God was silent, God was not saying anything, God was not showing up. But what I like about that season of disappointment, that season of feeling as though God is absent, is that it forced me, sort of pushed me, to get closer to God, not because I volunteered to get closer to God, but that situation sort of forced me or pushed me to surrender my life to God, to start to trust God fully 100%. Because I realized two things. Firstly, I was relying too much on my qualifications. I was putting so much trust on my capabilities, on my skills. I was putting so much trust on the things that make me stand out, on my gifts, on my abilities. And I was also allowing my past disappointments to limit me. I was allowing my background to limit me. I was allowing the fact that I've got no connections to limit me. Now, that situation where no one could help me, where the people who love me could not even help me but to watch me suffer, that moment sort of pushed me, forced me to start relying on God, to start putting my trust on God, and not to rely on my qualification and my capabilities, but to fully trust God can use my qualifications and my capabilities for me to reach where He wants me to reach. But also, God is not limited by that, and God is not limited by my past experience or my background. So that time of feeling as though it was a very devastating time. It's not a nice thing when God seems to be silent in your life. It's not a nice thing when God seems to be absent, during a crisis. It's not a nice situation. But also, things turned out to be beautiful because now I'm at a point in life where I seek to see things from the full view of God, where I seek to understand things from the perspective of God. I'm at a point where I now have clarity on what the book of Romans chapter 8 verse 28 is about, where I now want to fully immerse myself in the plan of God, to fully move under the purpose of God about my life, to live my life purposefully according to the plan of God. And I'm at a point where I seek to understand things, from the full view, from the full perspective. Because God has the full view, has the full perspective about our lives. He knows the beginning, He knows the end, and He knows the in-betweens. But sometimes we only focus on what is happening now. We only focus on what is in front of us. We only focus on the in-betweens, forgetting that there was a beginning, there's a point where we started, and also there's a point where we're going. And now to fully, to understand things from that perspective, to understand things from the perspective of God, and to fully rely on God, to unveil and to unfold that purpose, to unveil and to unfold the plan, which is a perfect plan that He has for our lives. And it was a devastating time, but it's a time that I'm grateful for. It's a time that if I were to choose, I would choose not to go through. But now it's a time that I'm grateful for, because it has brought me to a better place in my journey with God. It has brought me to a better place, in understanding what the plan and the purpose of God about my life is. And obviously my story is not identical to your story. You might not have been bullied because of your lunchbox at school. You might not have, gotten an opportunity to enroll at varsity. But I hope that you are encouraged to reach a point of realization where you say, okay, I've been relying too much on what I have, on what I know, and I've been limiting myself on the basis of what I don't have or on the basis of what I don't know. I've been limiting myself because of my family background. I've been limiting myself because of the mistakes that I've made in the past. But reaching a point where you no longer rely on the good or limit yourself because of the negative or because of the bad, but you fully immerse yourself in the plan of God and in the purpose of God, and you fully trust and to surrender. Because in most cases as Christians, we claim to be surrendering our lives to God until a crisis happens and you realize that I was not fully trusting on God. But I hope that through this testimony and by watching this video, you get to ask yourself those questions of, am I really, really trusting God for my life? Or I first try to do things on my own ability, and when things get out of hand, I then now go to God and say, God, things are out of hand, please take over. And I hope you're encouraged to fully immerse yourself in the purpose of God about your life.